Hello Academy students, it's Coach Zane here, and today we are going to have two components to this virtual classroom. The first component will be talking about ball placement, specifically when we're hitting our shots into the green. These mental exercises will allow you to be more aware when you are out on the course and in similar situations. The second component will be about mental game. I will be including interviews with several pros talking about what they think about whenever they are out on the course. And then I'll give you my thoughts and end with an assignment. So without further ado, let's get started. Hey everybody, and welcome Elite Academy students to the first component, which is talking about ball placement. And so what we mean by ball placement is not where it lines up in your stance. What we're talking about is where to place the ball when striking it, when hitting from the fairway. When hitting from the fairway into the green. So we've got a few examples here, and we're going to be going kind of over a few things. So the first thing that we've got to kind of look at is, let's give us a nice bright color, bright blue. All right. So the first thing that we have to look at is number one, right? We have to look at how far, okay? How far are we? And that's going to have a significant impact on how we play the shot. You know, if I'm 150 yards out, I'm going to be playing that shot pretty differently than if I'm 80 yards out. I'm going to be aiming at different spots if I'm 80 yards out. And so just for example, in this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to think of three different yardages. We're going to think of 50, 100, okay, and 150. Let's go 150. And the reason that we're choosing those three yardages is because there's not a whole lot of difference between like your 150-yard shots and 170-yard shots as far as where we're aiming. Same thing goes for 100-yard shots. You know, that's just, for most people, that's full wedge. It's full 9-iron. And then the 50-yard shots are those half-swing wedges, right? And those are very different. Those three are good kind of indicators of the different kind of shots we're going to hit in the green, different aiming points that we're going to use when hitting into the green. So the number one I said is how far. Number two, right? We're going to have to look at where the trouble is. Where can we miss? Okay, now that obviously starts off first with a different, the opposite question is where can't we go? Where can we not afford to be on any given shot? Sometimes that's because there's a bunker in that area. Sometimes there's a swell in the green. Other times it's because the green feeds off into water, or because there's a false front or false back or false sides on the green itself. So where can we miss? The reason we ask it in that positive way instead of where can't we miss is because we don't want to be thinking in negatives. Because your brain, if I say I don't want to hit it there, the last thing your brain thinks of is that thing. So if I say to myself, for instance, if I say to myself, I don't want to go in this bunker, right? If I say to myself, I don't want to be in that bunker, then what's going to happen? The last thought on my mind is bunker, and that's where I'm going to go, more often than not. Or it's just going to impact my ability to make a good, confident shot because I'm no longer thinking about what I want to do. I'm thinking about what I can't afford to do, right? And so that ends up being the positive thought in your mind, ends up being the thing that you don't want to happen, and that's what ends up happening, okay? So your brain always, it doesn't think the word no. We have to remember this. Your brain actually doesn't think the word no. It thinks the thing, and then it's like, oh, I don't want to go there. But it's thinking the thing, right? And then that becomes the target in your head. That becomes the target object in your brain, rather than where you actually want to go. So where can we miss? Where can we afford to be after any given shot? And the last thing is setting yourself up for your next shot. So where do I want to go, right? Where, or let's do this. Rather than that, let's think of how the ball will react. So reaction. We've got to think about the different reactions the ball is going to have. Is the green firm? Is the green soft? Is it medium? You know, is it going to spin a lot if I hit it? Is it receptive? Sometimes fast greens can be receptive as well. I've played on a lot of greens that stimp For people that don't know what that means, stimping is the measurement of the speed of a green. And 12 is very fast. And I've been on greens that stimp 12, but here's the problem. They're very receptive still. They're not just fast because they're dry or hard. They're fast because they're cut very short, and so they'll still spin like crazy, and even more so because now they're fast, right? So that's much less friction whenever that ball's rolling back to stop. So sometimes you might need to play the ball 10 feet, 10 to 20 feet further than you might normally, and that's just because maybe you've got a front pin, right? And you've got a little embankment behind the pin, and you want to roll it back off that. And sometimes that's the best option. Sometimes the best option is actually to go past the pin. But again, that also changes on the different shots that we look at. Okay, so let's look at a few different shots we have here. All right, so let's go up here. So shot number 1. Okay, shot number 1. Okay, shot number 1 we're looking at. This is obviously the pin. If we're hitting from this angle, the pin is in the back right. So you can kind of see that the green has a few undulations. The first undulation that we immediately see is this undulation toward the front of the green. So let me make that smaller, toward the front of the green. So it's kind of going like this, right? Now we're not sure from this image if that's a false front or if it's just a little embankment in the middle of the green, but we can tell that that's rolling toward us. We also can tell that this side of the green is kind of rolling this way. However, there is a little crest right here that prevents that ball from going over and onto this side. So we can't play it too far to the left, right? And judging from this distance, right? And let's go ahead and say this. So the first thing that we're going to do is judge it from a 50-yard distance. So if this is a 50-yard shot, okay, I don't want to, if this is a 50-yard shot, I don't just want to get on the green. I want to get close, right? We talked about this. So your 100-yard shots and in, I want them to be down in 2, right? I want to be able to hit the shot on the green and make the putt. Is that always going to happen? No, but I want to give myself the best opportunity. Okay, the other thing that I can't do is I can't really play it long of the pin, can I? You see this crest here is front to back. I mean back to front, but the problem with that is there's not a whole lot of green back here behind the pin. Very, very narrow. So if I play that 10 feet by, I might be playing with fire, and it looks like there's a steep drop off behind that hill as well. Okay, and we don't know what trouble's back there either. Okay, now we see this kind of flat area right here. You got a little back to front here. This is what we call a little safe area right there. You got an uphill putt at the pin, right? That's the kind of spots that we're trying to look for whenever we're out on the course. Where is that safe zone? Going to give me a decent look at the next shot. Okay, and then we have to think about, okay, now that we're thinking about 50, right? We're thinking about 50. The other thing we have to understand is that ball is going to spin, right? Not as far, not as fast. That ball is not spinning as fast backward as the 100 or 150-yard shot, right? The reason being is because from a 50-yard shot, it actually might than the 150, but the reason it's not spinning as much as the 100-yard shot is because of speed. So speed adds spin. We have to remember that. Speed adds spin to the ball. It adds check, right? And so if I'm playing a 50-yard shot and I have a nice slow swing, that ball will release, meaning it'll roll. So maybe my best shot is to hit it kind of right here at the pin. Okay? Hit it into that embankment, and then that ball will just die right next to the cup. If it doesn't go next to the cup, we're hoping that that ball goes over here. Okay? I want to make sure, though, I probably want to use something other than a 60 degree, right? Say I have a 50, a 60, a 56, and a 52. Okay? Probably want to use the 56 or 52 here just so I guarantee that this ball is going to release to the pin. All right? So I want to make sure that it releases to the pin, so I'm going to use a little bit of a lower wedge to make sure that it does that. And again, if I'm in the middle of a shot and I'm on the side hill line, I can always bail out to this side of the pin. All right. The one reason you don't want to bail out to this side is that's a downhill putt, and if these greens are fast, that is going to spell disaster, right? So we want to make sure that we're bailing out on this side of the pin. That's not only the safe option, that's the best option. Okay. So now that we've got that, let's go on to 100. So if we have a 100-yard shot, okay, we have a 100-yard shot, pretty much the same thing, right? I'm just going to try and play it like right here in the center and let it release to the hole. It looks like the whole thing is kind of flat. It's kind of sloping away off that embankment toward the hole, so I want to play it right there. So if I'm 100 yards, I don't want to be on this left side, like I said with the 50-yard shot. Can't afford it. So I want to make sure I'm over here on this side. Okay? And then let's look at it as if it's a... Now let's look at it as if it's a... oh, there we go. Let's look at this as if it's a 150-yard shot now. Whoa, what happened? There we go. So let's look at it as a 150-yard shot now. 150 yards, I can be, as aggressive, well, not as aggressive. I want to be pretty decently conservative. I'm actually, if I'm 150 yards out here, I would just play the center of the green. Why? Because you have a little bit of a turn there, a little bit of an embankment there, turning toward the hole. And if I pull it, right, I can always just two-putt. All right, and this is the wide part of the green. All right, so whenever you're over 100, right, that should be your rule of thumb. Over 125 yards, it's really not pin seek mode. It's really, okay, how do we avoid the biggest mistakes? You know what I mean? How do we avoid the biggest mistakes? Do we go after this pin? Maybe if we're feeling good and we're on 17. But if this is hole 1, I'm aiming right here, right in the center. Okay? All right, let's move on to the next one. I keep forgetting I have this. There we go. Moving off hole 1. Let's go on to hole 2. So hole 2, right? You kind of look at it. This is an interesting one because this looks a lot like the courses that I grew up on. You got the elevated greens. You'll see a lot of these in Florida. Okay? Problem with this green. First off, with elevated greens, I can't really roll it up onto the onto the green. Very difficult to do. And you only know this if you've played it. What will happen is it'll hit soft right there and just die. Then your ball is no good. It's going to be there short. You're basically playing for par at that point. You're trying to just get up and down from there. What I want to do on this shot in particular, with 50 yards, I'm playing it right at the 50-yard mark. I want to make sure, or even further, maybe say if I'm 50 yards away, I want to play it probably 52 yards. And I want to play it go by the pin, right? And obviously, I want to play it high, right? I don't want to play it very low. If I play it very low, it hits on top of that thing where the pin is, it's going to shoot forward. And I can't afford that, right? I want the birdie. I'm sitting good. I'm 50 yards away from the pin. I'm just going to try and hit a nice high 52-yard shot to get it just where the pin is at. Now, if the ground is firm, which in this it will not be, I promise you. If the ground is firm and you got that elevated green, you might play a run up the front of this hill right here, but I would not. I would stick to flying it past the pin. And here's the thing: with a 50-yard shot, you're probably not going to get as close as the guy from 100 on a hole like this. So that's the other thing to remember. If I'm playing in a tournament, I gotta know my distances. I gotta know where my golden distance should be on each hole. On this hole, I probably want to be about 100 yards out. Let me explain why. Because we already explained that 100 is going to have more spin, right? That's going to have more spin. So now what I can do is I can play it right on the number, and I can land it just by, and it roll back to the cup. If I have a 50-yard club, that thing's going to take probably 2 hops or 3 hops and then stop. But those hops are more yards. So if I play that 52-yard shot, like I said, I'm going to be probably about 15 to 20 feet by. If I play the 100-yard shot, and I just play it maybe 102 at most, if I hit it perfect, I'm like 6 feet. So that's just another way to look at those approach shots, right? Always think of, where's the best way to come into this green from? Especially given the pin location. And most often, whenever you're playing in tournaments, they'll give you the pin locations. Sometimes they won't. Not always. It's not a guaranteed thing. But sometimes you'll get that. Alright? If I'm 150 out on this hole, if I'm 150, I'm just going to play, like I said, to the center of the green. If this pin is 150, I'm going to play my 155 club, play it just left of the flag, and hope I push it a little bit. Okay? Alright. Now, let's move on to the next. Alright. Oh, here's a fun one here. Okay. So let's pretend like we're coming in from over here. Coming in from all the way over here. We're hitting to that flag right there. Alright? If I'm 50 yards out, what do I want to do? Just want to try and play something about 45 yards? Well, probably less. No, about 45. 45 yards, 15 feet short, and just let it release to the cup. Okay? I don't want to swing very hard at it. If this green is firm, that 15 feet is going to be perfect. Alright? If it's softer, I may need to play it about 48 yards. A little more on the number. Alright? What I can't afford to do is I can't go long of that pin because we can see this ridge right here. Okay? So if I go over that pin and it's fast, if it's stimping a 12 like we were talking about, that thing's going to release way back here. Then, not only do I have probably a double breaker, but now I have an uphill and a downhill putt all in one. And those are not easy to guess the speed on. Okay? So we want to make sure that we have a pretty uniform, okay, putt at the pin for our birdie putt. So if I'm 50 yards, again, I'm aiming short right there in the middle and letting it release. If I'm 100, okay, I probably just want to play it about 99. This is one of those opportunities where it's the exact opposite of the other one. If I'm 50 yards, that's probably the best place to be for given that pin location because I can play it to release a lot easier. If I'm 100 yards, it's a lot harder to play it to release. Okay, it takes a lot more finesse to do a different shot than just your, simple full wedge swing and the ball sticks where it lands. Okay? If it's really firm greens, 100 yards ain't going to hurt you. If they're very receptive, it may put me a bit further than if I have that 50-yard shot. And for the 150-yard shot, I'm just aiming at the center of that thing. Okay? If I end up left, right, whatever, all I want to make sure I do if it's 150 is not go past the pin over here. Okay? Because that's no-go. All right, let's move on to the next. This is a fun one. So this one is, you'll see at Chicopee a lot. So we see the pin back here, and it's tucked, right? Oh no, where are we? There we go, perfect. So we see this pin back here, and it is tucked. What is going on? I don't know what's going on. So we see the green back, so we see the pin back here and it is tucked, right? We got a bunch of green out to the left, right? So let's go ahead and talk about this. If I've got a 50-yard shot, what do? Well, if I've got a 50-yard shot, I can't afford not to go to that pin. So I'm probably going to pick some line, right? Like probably the bunker if I'm coming at it from this point of view. If I'm coming at it from more over here, okay, if I'm more over here, probably going to aim at the right side of that bunker. I'm going to give myself a chance to get about 5 feet and a 5-foot ring around the hole. That's probably my best option. Now, if I've got a 50-yard shot, I don't even need to worry about this water, right? Because I already know that I hit my wedges well. This is something that you get confidence in just practicing the shot itself. So if I have this shot, I'm not worried about chunking in the water. I've already practiced this shot enough times. I've hit at that target, that bullseye out on the range, and I just know it's not going to go in the water. All right? So, if I have a 50-yard shot, like I said, just aiming at this bunker somewhere in this area, and just letting it hit next to the pin and kind of roll out. Okay? If I've got a 100-yard shot, and I play it, I'm probably going to be a little bit more conservative. Again, we can kind of see that it has this ridge here, right, that feeds toward the hole. So probably what I'm going to do is play it right at here, okay? Right in the middle of these cluster of trees, right there, so that if it does hit, and it does stop, and it does spin, it's going to spin that way and down toward the cup, okay? If I've got to make it, if I've got to actually put the juice on it, and the match comes down to it, I'm going to aim more right here. But I'm definitely going to aim left of this pin. 50 or 100, it doesn't matter. I'm going to aim left of that pin. It can only hurt me to go right of this pin. Okay? If I go left of the pin, I'm using the hill to help me get to the cup. Okay? So I've got to make sure I do that. If I'm 150 yards or more, right, I'm no longer really thinking about that pin as a viable target, not that tucked. All right, so I'm going to hit more in the middle. I'm going to hit right here at this ridge, see if maybe I can push it a little bit, and that's about it. The one thing I can't afford to do is I can't afford to be short. So if this pin, say, is 145, I want to play my 150 club. Just nice smooth swing. If I go over, right, it's an easy little chip. Let the ball roll down to the cup. At least it looks that easy from here. Doesn't look like that severe of a decline. Could be, though. We don't know. But I know that that's a lot easier than playing it from the water. So that's what I've got to do. Got to aim to this quadrant right here, right in the middle. Boom. All right. Enough with the sound effects. Let's go on to the next. The Masters. Hole 16. I believe it's hole 16. Yeah, it's hole 16. So here we go. So we've got the Masters right here. So if you guys ever are fortunate enough to play the Masters and play this hole, and if you've watched this hole enough, whenever the pros play it, you know a few things. The first thing you know is that this whole thing kind of runs this way. Okay? So if I want to hit this shot, I want to play it over here. I don't want to go at the pin. Can I? And get away with it? Maybe. But why would I do that whenever I can just aim right here? And if 50 yards, right, again, I can play it to about 50 yards, and that thing will roll back to the hole if I hit it right here. So I'm going to aim a little closer to the pin. 100 yards, I can play that way past the pin. I can play that probably like 103 and it come back to it, 104, 105, something crazy, because I can have it hit the back of the green and it roll back. 150, same kind of thing. Just want to play it right here, right in the middle of the green, maybe just a little bit right of that little, what is that, a fan or a booth? I think it's a camera booth. But going to aim it just right here and let that thing kind of roll back to the cup. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Then, we got this one. Okay? And I think this is our last one. Yep. This is our last little friend over here. So this one's a little tricky. So you can kind of see it's really tucked. That pin is way in the back. That might not even be legal, which out here at Chicopee, they never are. So we see here, we got the pin sitting on top of that hill. You can see the decline from the pins coming back toward us, right? So a 50-yard shot, I've got to look to land it right in the middle of that thing and let it just release to the cup. All right? 50 yards, I can go for it. That's the go-ahead. I have a lot of green in front of me. I'm just going to play it to like roll up to the hole. And that's pretty much all you got to do from there. With a 100-yard shot, it'll be a little bit more conservative. Got to play it like right there, just short of the thing. And if I nail it, if I hit it a little long, it ends up being perfect. If I don't, then it just ends up right being there, and I get a chance at the one putt, or I two putt, which is fine. 150, obviously just aiming right here in the middle of the green. Just aiming right here in the middle of the green, hoping it hits off this. There's a little slope here. Hoping it hits off that slope and goes up there to the cup. Okay? But if it doesn't, I'm fine. That ball will just trickle down in this little swell, and I'll have a putt uphill. Okay, that's one of the more hard. That's really the hardest pin out of all these, I would say. But I hope this has helped. So just make sure that whenever you're doing this, whenever you're thinking about your rounds for tournaments, make sure we think of these three things. Okay, whenever we're looking at the pin locations themselves. Sorry. Whenever we're looking at the pins themselves, let's think of number 1, how far. Number 2, where can we miss? Number 3, how is the ball going to react? Not your reaction, right? We talk about that too, but how is a ball going to react when you hit it? Okay, is it a firm surface, soft surface? Is it going to spin a lot? Judging based off of how far I am, is it going to spin a lot? Is it going to spin a lot based off how receptive the greens are? That kind of stuff. And that's very important because that changes your shots. So I hope this really helps. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks, guys. And on to the next component. Here we go. So now we have to get to our second component, the mental game. A combination of zeroing in one's focus, analyzing the situation that you found yourself in. Pros have to assess their situation, make a decision, and execute their decision. First, let's start off with Phil Mickelson, talking about how he analyzes his shot before he hits it. Here it is.
You've always thought that way, very analytical.
There's a lot that I process on every shot, and there's a lot of detail. Do you want me to touch on it, or is it boring?
Hey, tell me about it.
Well, in my practice, I build a reference. So I hit the same shot over and over, building a 9-iron that goes 145 yards, let's say. Now, that will vary based on temperature and altitude, and which will change with time of day and whatnot, as well as wind and those effects. But one of the things people will say is I hit my wedge, 120. Well, you might hit a 120 under certain conditions, but in the morning, ball's not going to go 120. Maybe in the afternoon when it's warmer and the ball heats up, but it's going to go 5 to 10 yards shorter in the morning. People don't factor that in. If you get a little bit of water in between the club face and the ball, people don't know it actually increases spin, causes it to go shorter. The first cut always comes out 6 to 8 yards dead. If the grain is into you, it's going to launch and hit lower on the face, launch lower, have more spin. If it's down grain, the club slides a little bit quicker, you'll get more out of it. If it's sitting up on zoysia or off of a tee, always goes 5 yards farther with each iron based on the fact that the center of gravity is underneath the ball and it launches higher, a little bit less spin. All these things I have to factor in when I look at the lie. Okay, how is the lie and how is the ball going to come out relative to my 145 9-iron? Now, that's 10 off a stock, so I have a normal swing.
Right.
And then I have a second swing for every iron shot. And it's a little bit shorter backswing with the same acceleration. So I have a 145 and a 155 yard shot. What is the lie going to do? What's the temperature? What's the wind? How do I want the ball coming into the green? If you choke down an inch, 3 yards comes off of it. 1 degree aloft is 3 yards. So if you open the face a degree, that's 3 yards. So if I have a reference of 145, I want it to fly 142, I can choke down an inch. It'll come in a little bit lower, a little bit flatter, and release. Or I can just open it up and hit a little bit of a cut. That'll be 3 yards, but it'll back up. All these variables, I'll process like that when I look at the lie and assess the situation, see what kind of grass it is. And those are the nuances that allow me to be so precise with my wedges and my short irons and my distance control. Right. And that's why iron play has been such a strength for my game, is that I'm able to be precise to within a yard or two. And in my practice sessions, because I hit 1,500 balls every month to those specific numbers, my reference is pretty on. If I hit a shot 145 and I feel like I nailed it, it usually
that's where it goes.
That, yeah.
Next up, we have Jason Day, talking about how he sets up and hits his shot. This is what we elite golfers call a pre-shot routine, and this is a must-have when it comes to playing consistent and solid golf. One thing I want you to notice is how he describes it exactly, and how detailed it is. Let's take a listen to that.
Let's hear your thoughts about, talk us through the routine, and we'll go through mine.
It's kind of been a work in progress over the years, really just trying to trial and error more so, just kind of get the best way or the most efficient way for me to feel comfortable going into a shot.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, every golfer goes through a shot where some days they'll be concentrating a little bit more, and some days they won't be concentrating as hard as they were. And sometimes they'll go into a shot and not really think about it and hit a shot and it'll go into the trees and wonder why. And you just weren't concentrating hard enough on your target. Right. So you know, I used to struggle visualizing with my eyes open, really trying to pick a shot, whether it was a fade or a draw or high-low. So my coach one day, Colin, said, why don't you just close your eyes? Aaron Badley does it. So I started closing my eyes at a very young age. I was like 14, 15 years old. So I started closing my eyes, and you know, that's kind of how that came along. But really, it's very simple. I try and I take 2 practice swings before my shot. I just really try and mimic what I'm trying to accomplish. And for the most part, I'm just trying to hit a high bomb draw. So I just try and get the feeling of getting the club on the inside just a little bit, because that's where I feel the most powerful, is just getting the club on the inside. And then when I come back, I close my eyes. And when I close my eyes, I see a picture of myself standing like right here. So I'm standing there. I'm about to hit the shot, and I visualize my swing go back, and then go through, and I see the ball come out. And then I see how it goes, where it lands, and how it bounces. So when I close my eyes, I visualize that, and I make sure, especially last week, I make sure that I don't hit the shot or don't stop visualizing until I'm fully comfortable with that visual. So after I do that, then I come in, and say for instance, I'm picking the tower. I'll be coming in, looking at the tower, but I know where the ball is because I've got my awareness at the ball. And then once I change my eyes to the ball, my awareness is going back out to that tower, and then I look up to the tower and know exactly where it is. And then I come back, throw my awareness back at the ball, and then I stand over it. And my last thing is taking that one little, you know, kind of, I guess, that little, you know, because we're so static, I just don't want to go straight back. So I just want to make sure that I have that one little waggle, and then think about my target and just hit it as hard as I can. So the biggest thing is to aim small, miss small. It's like when you're shooting at a target, right? You don't shoot at the whole target, especially if you have a gun or a bow and arrow. You're trying to hit that little centerpiece. So with golf, it's hard to kind of hit golf balls like this, you know, because you can't. So the biggest thing for me is to really kind of visual and think about my target. And then I just go ahead and just hit it as hard as I can.
Interesting.
So that's kind of how I go about my pre-shot routine, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but lately I've been very disciplined enough to go and say I'm not going to hit the shot until I'm comfortable.
You feel ready?
Yeah, ready.
Yeah. Do you do that on, like, what kind of shots do you do that on every shot?
I do it on every shot.
Yeah.
Up next, we have the living legend Tiger Woods. Probably the best to ever do it. And in this video, he's specifically talking about what he thinks about whenever he's up at his ball. Here's a clue, though. It isn't a whole lot. This state of being is what is typically referred to in sports as in the zone. There are plenty of other athletes and in other sports that experience this phenomenon all the time. Perfect examples, Michael Jordan in the finals, Tom Brady in a game-winning late fourth quarter drive, or Michael Phelps in any of his Olympic races. Sports psychologists recognize this as somewhat of a trance-like state. Just hear it from the man himself.
I tend to have these blackout moments where I don't remember. I know I was there, but I don't remember actually performing the golf shot.
The athlete in the peak performance zone is really in a kind of a heightened state of awareness, an absorbed focus. There's an element of relaxation response that goes on in there, and they're always in the here and the now with kind of a clear, uncluttered mind, just absorbed in the moment, letting the performance happen rather than thinking about or helping the performance happen.
I get so entrenched on the moment, I guess my subconscious might take over. I don't know what the whole terminology is, but there are many putts or many shots where I don't remember hitting. I remember seeing the ball flight. I remember preparing for the shot, pulling the club out of the bag, and once I'm behind the ball, I'm walking in the shot, I don't remember until I see the ball leave. It's a weird thing.
You're looking to get that focus and that process to take place within a time frame. I call it the 40-second sanctuary of the pre-shot routine.
The more intense the situation gets, the calmer I feel, the more things slow down. It's a weird sensation. It's hard to kind of articulate on it. For some reason, the last few holes take forever, but they may be happening a lot faster for some reason, but they seem like they're taking longer. There are a lot of times where I don't hear noise. I don't hear anything. It's just I've become so enthralled in that particular moment, hitting a shot, performing a task, and being mentally prepared for that shot. And it's almost as if I get out of the way because of the training. When my father was in the Special Forces, there were a lot of times when he said the training would just take over, and it was as if my body was doing the work and I was just sitting back and watching it do it. And that's what it feels like when you're in golf. Well, for me, is that it just happens. I just get out of my own way and let the training just take over.
And last but certainly not least is Brooks Koepka, a champion in his own right with 4 major championships. In these 2 videos that I'm about to show, back to back, he talks about his overall mindset, basically his personal drive, and how he deals with mistakes out on the golf course. Let's take a listen.
I think one thing that I've understood better than anybody is that a round of golf is nothing but mistakes. You know, I'm trying to hit it in the hole and I've missed every single time. And you know, you hit one that goes in the hole in every hole. But other than that, everything's a mistake. So I'm never trying to hit it in the water. I'm never trying to hit it out of bounds, but that's a mistake too. So if I understand that nothing's perfect and I just have to push through and get on with it. And if you can get on with the shot, because it's never exactly where I was trying to hit it. Not one shot. Never flighted perfectly. Never, you know, I might be trying to fade it or draw it and never does just enough or too little, whatever it might be. And the more I understand that, the better I've become, the better player I've been. And I think knowing when to take your moments, knowing when it's on, and take advantage of it.
Four-time major champion Brooks Koepka right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Last weekend you were going for a U.S. Open three-peat, something that hasn't been done since the early 1900s before ultimately finishing second to Gary Willard. How much were you thinking about history during that tournament? Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about history. I've heard, you know, I've always thought about it, you know, I'll think about everything when I'm done, when I retire. In the moment, you're so focused on what you got to do and what you need to accomplish that it's another tournament. I'm just trying to go out there and go win. But on 18 green, it kind of sank in how close I was to getting it done, which was, it was a cool feeling, a little disappointed, but, you know, second place, you know, sometimes you just run into a buzzsaw in golf.
Well, listen, you finished first or second in all 3 majors this season, so clearly you want to, I mean, obviously you're number 1 in the world for a reason, but when you talk about being number 1 in the world, I guess what I'm thinking about is, you know, to some people in the respective sports that I cover, there could be a lot of pressure that comes along with that. Doesn't appear to be the case with you. Talk about that a little bit. Just having that cachet, having that status as we speak, and how, if at all, it has affected your game.
You know, I think when I first became number 1 about 6 months ago over in Korea, all I wanted to do was just keep that title. You know, number one in the world. That's all I was focused on. I wasn't focused on results, just going out there and playing good. I was focused on, all right, what do I got to do just to keep it? And now it's more of a, hey, just go out and go play. If you go play well, you're still going to keep number one. You go win, and, you know, nobody can stop you there.
You know, I listen to you and I've watched you do some interviews, and obviously you're not shy about your confidence. You're not shy about how you feel. You're not cocky like some people I know. I won't mention who they are, like me. Okay, you're not cocky, but definitely you're very, very confident and you're unapologetic about it. Where does that come from? And more importantly, do you think that's what golf needs? Because I love your personality for the game, and I don't think people talk about that nearly as much as they should.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You know, we spend so much time on social media, and you hear, like, I follow the NBA all the time. So, and I've watched the interviews those guys in the NBA do, and you're talking like how confident they are, and they're like, they come out, they're like, I know I'm going to win. This is who I am. You watch Kevin Durant, you watch LeBron James, you watch the interviews they do, and you know, it's they're not trying to be anybody they're not. You know, they own who they are. You know, you can see it more with Kevin Durant over the last couple of years. You know, he's kind of come into his own, and it's cool to see. And that's kind of the approach I kind of have to it. You know, hey, I'm just gonna say how I feel, what's going on with me at the time, and not hold back. And I think it's kind of helped. You know, people kind of they view me now as what they get off the golf course. Because on the golf course, you know, I got that serious look, I got whatever. There's no emotion, but off the golf course, completely different.
It's interesting because when I think about golf, you almost get the impression that they encourage something totally different than what your personality has displayed. And I mean, at least in the past, you know, decorum, you know, they say decorum, golf etiquette, et cetera, and people look at those kind of things and they'll take it off the court and they think there's a certain way that you're supposed to act. There's a certain way that you're supposed to be. And you don't seem to pay attention to any of that at all. I'm wondering how receptive the world of golf has been to that, because to me, I view you as a breath of fresh air. What do you say to all of that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to be me. You know, I've noticed over the last few years, I've just become a lot happier. I don't feel like I've got to hide anything. I don't feel like I've got to be somebody I'm not. And I'm just way more comfortable in my own skin. And I think that's, you know, hopefully people see that. Hopefully people are starting to realize, hey, I am who I am, and you know, I'm not going to be somebody else just because I think it's going to get me more fans, or I think I'm going to be more popular off the golf course. That's not what I'm trying. I just want to be myself, and you know, people to be able to see that.
How much do you believe that Tiger Woods may have helped that? Because obviously he was a bit different when he came along than traditional golfers were perceived as being, at the very least. How much do you think he's helped basically, you know, pave a path for guys like yourself and others to follow?
I don't even think there's words for what he's done to our sport. You look at how Tiger moved the sport to being the athletic, you know, the athleticism you see now in guys. You look at guys from, you know, Gary last week to, you know, myself, Dustin, anybody, these kids that are coming out, they're 21, 22 years old, and it looks like every one of them could play another sport if they wanted to. You know, they look like they could go play baseball. You know, you're starting to see, it's in every sport, you're starting to see they're bigger, stronger, faster. It's just simple. And Tiger he made golf cool. He made golf cool for kids my age. When I was growing up at like 10 watching him, you know, 99, I was like 9 years old. Right. And, you know, golf wasn't exactly cool, a cool sport to play. Nobody was really playing it. And, or for sports fans, you know, like me, I wanted to watch baseball, basketball, football. Right. And Tiger made it cool to go out and go play golf.
You know, you battled with Tiger at the Masters. You appeared with him at the PGA. What were those experiences like? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it's different. Anytime you can be in a group with Tiger, you know it's going to be very loud. They're all going to be cheering for him. It's fun. Who doesn't want to play with the best ever to play the game? I mean, that's what you want to do. You want to go up against the best, and you know, there's nothing better, especially like at Augusta. You go down the final couple holes, and you know, you're trying to duke it out with him, and he just got the better of me. And then, you know, last year at the PGA, I got the better of him, and that's what we want. You know, I thought it was awesome when he sent me a text. He said we're 1-1 after Augusta. I thought that was pretty cool.
Wow, you're ranked #1 in the world right now. Where do you, at #1 in the world, believe you compare? How comparable are you to Tiger in Tiger's prime?
I don't know, man. That's it's different. It's such a different game from when he was playing until now. It's hard to say. You know, you look at the guys he was playing against. You know, VJ, Ernie, Phil. I mean, these guys are so good, and I mean, they're legends now. You know, you see them on the range, and you're looking at them, and you're like, man, those are the guys I looked up to. But it's hard to say. You know, now there's 15 guys I feel like you could put in that great category. It's who's going to come out of that to be, you know, one of the, you know, some of the greatest to ever play in our generation. So it's tough. I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to who's got the most wins and who's got the most majors.
I know this can be a lot to take in and a lot to think about. But let's start off with one question at a time. If you could write these questions down, and I want them written out and delivered to me by next practice. Number 1, what are the 3 things to think about when hitting shots into the green? Number 2, how do you right now analyze shots when you play? And how can you be better at analyzing the situations that you're in the future? Number 3, write out your entire pre-shot routine from start to finish. Be detailed. Number 4, what are ways you can convince yourself to get in the zone out on the course? What kinds of tricks, mantras, phrases, and or thoughts will you use to get yourself there? Number 5, how are you going to react to good shots and how are you going to react to bad ones? Remember, be specific. And number 6, how are you going to carry yourself and think about yourself whenever you are out on the course or in practice? That's all the questions I got. I hope you guys all have a great weekend, and I hope you guys all practice hard. I look forward to seeing you guys back here on Monday.